Hello everyone, welcome to my spoiler talk for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 1. We got 22 episodes to get through, so let's get started. So this first episode starts off with the fact that we have post-Avengers, and we got Avengers merch. And, you know, secrets out there, heroes exist and all that stuff. So a building blows up. We have a guy named Mike Peterson who goes into the building and saves a woman from that building who turns out to be an evil doctor later on. So that's great. And Sky is watching the whole thing because, you know, she's part of the Rising Tide, which is an enemy of S.H.I.E.L.D. So second part is we have Grant Ward who retrieves a package which the Rising Tide have basically spoiled the location of, so it's gonna be a lot more difficult. So they get the package, Ward fights, and he gets out, and then back at S.H.I.E.L.D., Maria Hill interviews Ward for Coulson's team, and he's like, I know Coulson's dead, I'm level 6. It's like, welcome to level 7. The room was dark, I think a bulb went out. This series has some humor too. And also, the story that we get now is Fury apparently played the Avengers by lying to them, and Coulson was in Tahiti in order to recover from, you know, what happened at the end of the Avengers. Now, we know that he was dead, and he was brought back to life with Kree technology, but we'll get there when we get there. Also, Maria Hill, which I like to see Maria Hill in this show. Anyway, she basically goes to Coulson's like, hey, this whole team that you're compiling, it's sketchy as can be. But sketchy can be perfect. So Sky tracks down Mike Peterson, talks to him and says that S.H.I.E.L.D. is dangerous. Then after that, we get Melinda May, who it's apparently something happened with her, which we'll find out in this season soon enough. And she doesn't want any combat, and Coulson's like, you're only gonna be the driver, don't you worry about that. You're just gonna drive the bus, and that's it. And we also have the fact that Fitz and Simmons are not combat ready at all. And then afterwards, once the team is basically ready and they're setting off, we gave Sky as a voiceover about the fact that it's like, oh, how will you come to us from the sky? How will you come to us? And then Coulson opens up the van door and it's like, by opening your door. So they interrogate Sky, but when that doesn't necessarily work, Coulson grabs Truth Serum and injects Grant with it, and basically tells Sky to, you know, hey, get out of him what you need in order to trust us, okay? However, what I don't really understand is the fact that Sky then takes off her jacket and becomes all sexy-like. Why? You don't need to seduce him. All you have to do, he is injected with Truth Serum. He doesn't need seducing, okay? But she gets out of him what she needs, and while Coulson grabs Sky, we have Melinda May and Fitzsimmons who go to the exploded building, and they find the camera equipment, which will help them track down, like, what happened. Also, I like the scene where Fitzsimmons assault Ward, and we get the introduction of Lola, Phil Coulson's car. But afterwards, we need to find out what happened. So we get this holo video where we learn exactly what happened. Basically, there was a guy who came into the building and was like, and basically heated up and exploded. So that's great. And also, during the interrogation, we learn about Centipede, the big bads of this season. So Mike then attacks his old job and then visits his doctor, who is like, you blew everything. And then after S.H.I.E.L.D. learns about what happened, Coulson examines the video a bit more closely, and it turns out that it was Extremis from Iron Man 3. So it's all connected. This is the most connected episode that I've ever seen in anything from the MCU. And Mike then afterwards kidnaps Sky, and has Sky erase all of his data. And also they go to the train station in order to escape. And S.H.I.E.L.D. goes to the train station in order to rescue Sky. And we also have a third party from that doctor who's gonna take out Mike. So we got a lot of trouble. So Melinda May takes out the third party. We have the fact that after a bit of a scuffle, which I actually like, that Sky kicks a guy and is like, oh yeah, you're right, he is a weakling, and then the guys attack Mike so that Sky can escape, but it doesn't really work. But Coulson eventually finds Mike. He tries to talk him down about everything, and Grant only can shoot him when it's absolutely necessary, when he's about to blow. However, Coulson does talk him down, and then Grant shoots him, but we see that Fitz is with him. Simmons comes running in, and it's like, okay, so Fitz and Simmons figure out a way to kind of like neutralize the Extremis kind of in his body. Perfect. So the day is saved, and then Sky basically gets asked to join the team. She's kind of unsure, and then the team comes in and is like, hey, we got an 04, and it's like, do you really want to know what an 04 is? And then we'll get into the next episode. So in episode 2, we start this episode with a hole in the plane, and then we jump to earlier, where Coulson says Sky becomes a consultant for the team kind of. I don't really know what that means, but sure, why not? Kind of like Stark, which, another reference, don't you worry, we got the biggest one at the end. And then Fitz and Simmons are overly excited for Sky to be on the team. And May and Ward are 100% against it. So, last episode, we ended with an 084, so we head over to Peru, and Sky talks to Coulson about Tahiti and about the fact that he may have died, but not really. And when she says Tahiti, he immediately replies with, "It's a magical place," which starts the sus pattern. Don't you worry, you keep your eye on this one, okay? Every time he says a magical place, it's a bit sus. It's like a code word that's activated. However, we're heading over to Peru in order to do to get to the 084, and the last 084 was Mjolnir. Meow Meow was the last 084. So the gang arrives in Peru and finds the 084 in a temple, and then I think it was Fitz or Simmons, one of them, says that it's been there for about 1500 years or something like that, which, yeah, it's been a pretty long time. And we learn between Ward and May that May is the cavalry, which we will learn a lot more about later on. However, for now, let's just pretend that that means that she was the wife of Cavalrine. However, while Ward and May are talking, soldiers show up. So they take out those soldiers. However, then, because there are a lot of soldiers and two people can't really take out an army like this, Coulson comes outside. Turns out an old flame called Camilla is here. So that's nice. Nice to know that they know each other. And while everyone is examining the 084, we have then rebels who attack. So Grant grabs the 084, puts it in his bag, which makes Fitz go immediately panic mode, like, "What are you doing?" And they all get into the vehicles and they escape. However, because of the fact that the 084 is kind of heat-based, Simmons has the brilliant idea of rolling down a window while they're getting shot at. Which I thought was, "I'll roll down a window." No, don't. Oh, I love that sequence in there. So we get to the plane, we make it, the Camilla's team gets on, so everyone's safe, and we learn that the 084 is basically worse than a nuke, potentially, if it blows up. And it's also powered by Tesseract energy. More connections to the MCU. People are saying that this is not canon. Dude, we're in episode 2, and we already have so many connections. So everyone's kind of cooling down. However, not everything is as it appears. And Ward and Coulson know about this, because Ward notices that the soldier guys are not touching their drinks. Coulson is like, "Wow, you're really direct," which normally you aren't, and also I don't trust you at all. So Camilla's team turns out to be evil and attacks the plane and takes over the plane, and now the team gets captured because of the fact that, you know, not everyone is combat ready. We need to work on that, and we will. However, this time they have gotten a common cause. So the team, which had arguments beforehand with each other, now makes up and then takes back the plane. And I love the way that they work together. The fact that Sky reads a pamphlet and uses a rowboat in order to block the hole in the plane, because it turns out the good guys shot the hole in the plane. Surprise, I know, but they shot the hole in the plane. But I love the way that they work together, and then they get the 084 to the slingshot, which I thought was actually funny, because when they said slingshot, I was like, haha. Look, before season 4, you have like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. slingshot. That's why I went ha-has to anyone who doesn't know. And they shoot the 084 into the sun, but not really. We'll find that out later on. And then Sky is secretly still with the rising tide, and we have Fury mad at Coulson about the fact that the plane was destroyed. By the way, a cat still did that. I'm not forgiving you. In everything that Fury appears, I must make sure to acknowledge the fact that that was still a cat's doing. But Coulson gets a new plane, I guess, and then we head over to episode 3. So in episode 3, a truck gets attacked and cars just start to fly. So weird stuff is happening. Then the truck gets lifted into the air and falls down. We learned that it is a S.H.I.E.L.D. truck, and it has some precious cargo on board. We learned that that cargo is a guy named Franklin Hall, who in the comics is apparently a superhero or supervillain. I didn't really do all the research, but apparently he's named Graviton or something like that. What a dumb name. But now we need to figure out who stole it. And also we have Grant Ward training Sky as well. So we figure out that one of 3 people sold the machine to our bad guy in order to be able to get Franklin Hall out. So we pay one guy a visit who is riding a horse in a forest and has a cowboy hat on. And it really starts to feel like the Old West, and then the cowboy apparently was paid in gold. So we have a little bit of an Old West thing going on. However, we learn that the main bad guy of this episode is the one known as Ian Quinn. He has kidnapped Frank in order to help him work on the gravitonium. This episode is just full of dumb names, but we need a way into the compound in order to rescue him. So S.H.I.E.L.D. infiltrates Ian Quinn's party because of the fact that S.H.I.E.L.D. is not with S.H.I.E.L.D, at least not officially, and won't go against any international laws that may have been established, because that is where Ian Quinn is. He is protected by law, so that's a fun one. However, at the party, I mean, S.H.I.E.L.D. is great at infiltrating the party, but then eventually she gets found out, so she writes down on a piece of paper like, S.H.I.E.L.D's listening, kind of like throwing them under the bus. However, she doesn't really throw them under the bus, because she uses that in order to get close to Quinn, so that she can disable, or at least allow S.H.I.E.L.D. to hack into the system in order to disable the force field around the compound, so that Coulson and Ward can go inside to rescue S.H.I.E.L.D. and also Franklin Hall. So they get inside. So S.H.I.E.L.D. gets found out and basically gets a gun pointed at her. But before, Ward trained her in taking a gun from someone when they're pointing it at you. So she does that, takes a gun, and then dude's like, so what, are you gonna shoot me? She's like, nope, and runs out and jumps into the pool. And then gets rescued by Ward. Meanwhile, Coulson goes for Franklin Hall, who wants to destroy the gravitonium. However, there are a lot of innocent people. So we basically have a talk until it turns out that there's no stopping Franklin Hall. So Coulson shoots the glass below them, and Franklin Hall just goes into the gravitonium, which I guess he's gonna become Graviton. And the day is basically saved. And S.H.I.E.L.D. hides the gravitonium away so that nobody knows. It's not even on the books. Nobody knows that exists, okay? We need to keep it out of everyone's hands, because that's what Hall would have wanted. And also in this episode, we get the story of Ward and his brothers, which will come into play later. And also we get the story of S.H.I.E.L.D. being an orphan, which will also come into play later. And I like the fact that Fitz and Simmons had a connection to Franklin Hall. However, at the end of the episode, we have the fact that Franklin Hall kind of comes out of the gravitonium and then goes back in. As in, originally he was planned to be in more episodes. But that plan was scrapped, upsetting the actor very much. So episode 4 starts off with a black woman stealing something from men in red masks. We later learn that those are diamonds. And Fitz and Simmons are working on the Night pistol, which desperately needs a new name. The gang then investigates who stole the diamonds, and Coulson talks about like, oh, the job is a lot easier with Facebook, Instagram, and Flickr. What is Flickr? Come on, dude. I don't even know what Flickr is. And also, this was not an official assignment for S.H.I.E.L.D. This was an assignment that Coulson chose. So that's interesting. He has some history with this thief, because we learned that he trained this thief himself as part of S.H.I.E.L.D. Meanwhile, the thief sells off diamonds in golf balls where you put water on it and it turns into diamonds. Technology is weird sometimes. And she gets an access card or something like that, which, okay, that's 30 million in diamonds for a card. Sure. And Ward says, you know, it must be difficult being betrayed by someone that you trained. And I find that very funny that Ward is the one that says that. Keep this in mind for later spoiler talk. We'll get there. But this is a very interesting thing that Ward is the one who says that. And also, because of the fact that Coulson trained the thief, we now know that the thief's name is Amador. So the team searches for Amador's location. We have the fact that Ward and Coulson are out there searching, and we have S.H.I.E.L.D., Fitz and Simmons, who are in the van. It's still weird calling her S.H.I.E.L.D., but we'll... season 3 or so. But they stay behind, and later on, S.H.I.E.L.D. calls Grant and is like, so what if we have to take a leak? And he's like, there's a bottle. He gives them a bottle. You do know that women do not have what men have. You do understand this, right? Biology makes the two of us different. We cannot just go in a bottle. And then Amador attacks the van. So that's a nice little twist as well. Because her eyeball she has an eyeball camera. And that eyeball camera also has X-ray. Which I like how Fitz gets up and is like, what's she watching us? She's watching us. And then afterwards, back in base, because we lost, we now need to find out where she is. We hack her eyeball, and then we also figure out that she is basically being controlled because she writes on a piece of paper, can I sleep? So yeah, she's being controlled. And we also have a nice bonding moment between Phil and S.H.I.E.L.D. But May is the one who wants to take her down. Coulson says no, and then lets May do the first eyeball watch. So Coulson eventually goes there and is like, where's May? Yeah, she's going after Amador. So Coulson also goes after them. May finds Amador, talks to her a bit, then they have a fight, and she turns off the lights because she has X-ray, she can see stuff. And then Coulson kicks in the door and shoots her with the ice gun. With the night pistol. It's not called the ice gun yet, I don't think. So they capture her and also are faking her feed with the fact that Grant Ward is now doing the mission. So that's fun. Grant Ward has to infiltrate this place. However, he also has to bromance a guy in order for his code. Which, yeah, that doesn't really go well. He knocks him out and then goes inside. And we have this weird writing on the wall, which will come into play later. And then he gets found out because he needed the code in order to turn off the alarm. And he doesn't have the code. Alarm goes off and Ward now has to escape. And I like this exchange where it's like, I'm coming to you. What does that mean? Ward escapes, they leave. However, Ward's early movements in this episode are really weird because he's like looking down in the truck before Ward gets out. He's making all these weird movements and he's also using X-ray on a car for some reason, which is so weird. And that feels very sus. But when he goes up to the guy and the guy asks for identification, he looks down and pats himself. I'm sorry, but you can still see the hands. But whatever, we'll ignore that part, okay? But while Grant does the mission, Coulson goes after the mystery man and Fitz and Simmons operate on Amador. After Coulson had a talk with Amador and kind of convinced her of like, this is a good idea. So while Ward is making his escape, he looks in the mirror and tells Fitz to just cut the wires. So he does that, puts the eyeball in something, it explodes, fine, whatever. Coulson finds the guy who sent the messages. However, he too was a victim of whoever is behind this. Spoiler warning, clairvoyant. But that guy's eyeball explodes, so it wasn't the true guy. And Amador later on has some suspicions about Coulson because he's acting different. So she asks Melinda May, well, like, what did they do to him? And she's like, what do you mean? And it's like, oh, nothing. So there's a mystery about Coulson's resurrection. And then the episode ends with Sky X-raying Ward. So we start episode 5 with a magician failing to entertain. So he pulls out real fire out of his hands. And then he gets approached by a flower girl. And we basically learn that this guy has actual superpowers. So he gets kidnapped. As you do. Back at S.H.I.E.L.D, we learn that S.H.I.E.L.D has an index on special people and objects. And they go on a mission to save this mysterious man named Chen. So Chen is caught because the rising tide leaked that info. And everyone obviously turns their gaze towards Sky, who didn't do it. So Chen wakes up in this weird building where it's like, I've seen worse prison cells. And the flower girl basically talks about the fact that it's like, you know what, hey, you're nobody, but what if you were somebody? We could make you somebody, okay? So Scorch, so he agrees, gets the nickname Scorch, and then S.H.I.E.L.D goes after Miles, which is someone that Sky knew, because she hacks the Rising Tide stuff in order to find out who did it, and it turns out it was Miles. So she tips Miles off about the fact that S.H.I.E.L.D is there, even though Grant was way too obvious. And Miles escapes, Sky is at his home and is like, what are you doing? And then they have a little bit of a love thing going on. And it is nice of Melinda May to wait for them to be done with their fooling around in the bedroom. For her to basically just be like, here's your shirt, now you're arrested. So, S.H.I.E.L.D catches Miles and Sky. Everyone feels betrayed by Sky's actions. Grant! So you do know how to feel betrayed, don't you? Meanwhile, the bad guys power up Scorch and then learn that the Extremis blends really well with the protection in Chen's blood in order to be fireproof. So, they take that protection away from him. And we have the return of the evil doctor of episode 1, meaning that it is all connected. So, they need to figure out a way to get Miles to talk. So eventually, and they need to find something on him. So they find that he has been selling info and drops that to Sky, who is very mad about the fact that they have been doing that he's been doing that, because of the fact that information should be free. So Miles tells the gang that he's basically been he sold off the info to a flower girl for $1 million who works with centipedes. And let's be honest here, how harmful can centipedes be? So Sky is absolutely furious with him. So S.H.I.E.L.D eventually learns the location of the centipede hideout, so they raid the hideout. And I do like the fact that Phil Coulson puts something on the door, moves away and crosses his arms, which is a reference to Iron Man 2, where he did that as well. So they infiltrate that place. However, they need S.H.I.E.L.D. and also Miles' help later on in order to deal with things. S.H.I.E.L.D. needs to open up the doors because they get in, the doors get locked, and Guy then needs to hack. However, S.H.I.E.L.D. needs to be on site, so they go over there. Meanwhile, Coulson and Melinda May are trying to talk Scorch down, but Scorch ain't having any of that stuff. He is now evil! So, they have only one choice to do, and that is the fact that they kill him. But not before Scorch burns the evil doctor. And then they inject him with a bunch of extremis so that he's gonna blow up. And Miles uses the ventilation ducts in order to get the explosion away. So that the explosion travels through the air vents and goes up the building. Don't know how that works, but I'm not smart enough to understand that. And then at the end of the episode, we have the fact that Miles gets a bracelet, which blocks him from using electronic devices. S.H.I.E.L.D. also gets that stuff. And we learned that S.H.I.E.L.D. joined S.H.I.E.L.D. to find out who she is and where she's from. So that's interesting to see. And we have the Flower Girl meeting up with someone in prison. And S.H.I.E.L.D.'s backstory will be revealed. It's just gonna take a very long time. So, in episode 6, we start off with the fact that we got some camp people being attacked by something unknown. A lightning bolt from the sky. And I know your first thought is Thor, but it's not him. And we got a guy named Mr. Cross because the fact that he keeps saying his name and he's floating around. So, meanwhile, on the S.H.I.E.L.D. bus, we have an argument about a gun being an ounce too heavy. So, yeah, okay. Sure, why not? We need arguments. Why not about one of those? But they go to the area to investigate what caused this, and they get another reading about the electricity. So they go over to a barn where they find another person, and they learn both of Mr. Cross and this specific person are firemen, but they're not just any firemen. They are both part of the fireman unit that helped during the Avengers. So, Coulson and Melinda May go over to the fire department in order to figure out what's wrong. However, we have one guy who put a Chitauri helmet. This is also the reason why everything is going wrong. In a case. And this man is about to die, sadly enough. But all they did was clean it. But it turns out that the helmet is infected with a virus. So, that fireman also dies, R.I.P. the boy. And we go back to the ship. However, the problem is when However, the problem is, when they found the first guy, Simmons got a little bit of a shock from him. She's infected. And so now the rest of this episode is all about saving Simmons. And man, I love how the team comes together. However, there's something else that comes together, but I'll get to that later. But everyone is sad about, kind of breaking down about the fact that Simmons is gonna potentially die. Fitz is also not really having any of it. He does his best to save her. They talk about how to save her. So the answer is, well, the Chitauri were immune. So Fitz goes upstairs, grabs the helmet, comes downstairs, goes into the lab, which is sealed off because, she's infected. And they start to work on a cure together. So they go through a couple of cures, which don't work. However, the last cure, they use it, it doesn't work. And it's like, oh no. Meanwhile, Coulson gets calls from Blake, the guy from the Item 47 one-shot, another continuity with the MCU, about the fact that he needs to throw Simmons off the plane. But Coulson pretends to go through a tunnel somehow and loses connection. So after the last one doesn't really work, Simmons asks for a moment alone with Fitz, and then she hits him in the back of the head with a fire extinguisher. What is it with people getting hit with fire extinguishers? I mean, to be honest, there's only been 2, and one is upcoming in Daredevil, but still, that's more than I thought. And she throws herself off the plane. However, when Fitz gets up, he learns that the cure actually works. So he's like, no, don't jump. And he runs after her. He grabs the cure, grabs a parachute, wants to jump, but he can't really get the parachute on because, he is Fitz after all. So Ward comes downstairs, grabs the parachute and the cure, jumps down, uses the cure on her, saves her, and then Coulson is mad about the fact that they had to get them back from another country because we are above another country's waters. However, during this episode, Coulson also had himself get a physical because he feels that something is wrong. Coulson is starting to kind of break down the fact that not everything is as it seems. And also, we get to see his very cool-looking scar. I don't know why the dude doesn't just go shirtless, man. It's a really cool-looking scar. But we get to see his scar from when he got stabbed by Loki. Meaning that, yes, this is the Coulson from the Avengers movie. In case you didn't know, this is actually the Coulson from the Avengers. If you were thinking, oh, maybe it's a clone. It's not. And they deliver the helmet to Blake on the sandbox. And that's basically the end of the episode. And I thought this episode was actually really good. I love the team working together. I love the fact that, you know, like the sadness. I know Simmons was going to be alright. I mean, we have like, what, 7 seasons? But still, I really felt for Simmons. So, in episode 7, the gang rescues Agent Shaw. And Simmons takes the intel out of his nose. Because he put a little bit of a thing in there. And they're going to the hub, which is very exciting for everyone involved. So we meet Agent S.H.I.E.L.D again. And also we meet Victoria Hand. I have no idea who that is. That is not a character from the movies at all. And they make her out to be this big person. At least like, oh my god, Victoria Hand is here. It's like, who is that? And they basically have intel on an overkill device that they need to stop, so we need some specialists. And the chosen ones are Grant, Ward, and Fit. So Ward and Fist have to go on a mission together, and my goodness, that is going to be fun, isn't it? Because Fitz is a little bit jealous of Grant Ward, because he's the one who saved Simmons. Because, you know, in the last episode, we had the start of the Fitz-Simmons love. So they go on that mission. Meanwhile, Sky has an issue with this. And that is the fact that they're being kept in the dark. She totally does not like being kept in the dark. She wants to know what happened because that's how we do things on the team. The problem is, this is the hub. You don't do things. You don't have clearance level, so you don't get to know. Everyone's like, alright. And she's like, what? Hey, I want to know. So that is a little bit of a side thing that we'll be delving into later. So, back to Fitz and Ward. They have some issues getting across the border because Ward knows someone. They go into the bar. Turns out that someone, yeah, he dead. So there's an issue. However, the lights go out. So Fitz fixes the lights and that makes everything work. And later on it is revealed that Fitz was the one who actually broke the electricity in there with an EMP. So he fixed that. And it just shows how smart Fitz is, even in the field. They're all growing. However, they get across the border, and then things go a bit wrong. So they jump out of the truck and they run for it. And Fitz has this fantastic sandwich that Simmons prepared for him. And Grant Ward is a sandwich hater. Meanwhile, back at the hub, Sky hacks into the mission after Simmons, you know, she tells Simmons to go into a place and put a USB in there so that the system will think that Sky is using Reddit. Meanwhile, she's hacking into the mission. However, Jasper S.H.I.E.L.D pops up and we have this funny exchange between Simmons and S.H.I.E.L.D. And I would have asked him to watch out for Falcons, you know, give him a little bit of a friendly advice, you know. But instead, she shoots him with the night pistol, which I think at this point might be called the ice gun. But I don't know if it's called the ice gun yet, which I think is actually the future name of the thing. But she does put the USB in. Sky hacks into the mission and learns that there's no extraction plan. So she's a bit upset. Coulson is like, look, you shouldn't have done that. Then goes to Victoria Hand. What do you mean there's no extraction plan? So basically, the team decides to become the extraction plan. Also, Fitz and Ward make it over to the location, and Ward is signaling the extraction plan, while Fitz is putting something in there that lets them go look through the wall. However, there is no extraction plan, so Ward goes into the building, takes 2 guys out, but I like how it's like, okay, so we have 2 guys. There's a third. The third guy is attacking the first 2. Oh my god, Grant. Oh, that makes sense. You were the one who was attacking them. So they get down there, and they start disabling the overkill device, and right towards the end of it, Ward reveals, yeah, there's no extraction plan. Are you sure you don't want a head start? And Fitz is like, look, you are always the hero, but I have my worth too. And I'm like, man, I really like Fitz. But I will stay here because I know, because Coulson told you to look after me, but he also told me to look after you. We're in this together. So they disable the thing. However, then they make it kind of like a cannon that Fitz can use. So Fitz goes upstairs and he uses the overkill device in order to disable all of the weapons while Ward fights off the people. But one person gets kicked in the face by Fitz, and Fitz probably must have had that masculine adrenaline flowing through his veins. But they get outside, a bunch of guys with guns are there, and then the cavalry comes in and saves them, and there you go, everything is fine. However, while Sky was looking at the mission, she also had the opportunity to look at her file. However, she wasn't able to fully get a look at it. But Coulson did, and he told her, you were dropped off to the orphanage by a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent. And then later on, it's revealed that she has a little bit more of a secret that is in that file that Coulson did not disclose with her. And I thought maybe that reveal would come in this episode, but turns out it doesn't. Also, Coulson kind of looks into his own file, but he can't because it's restricted, because he wants to know what happened with Tahiti. Because once again, they mention Tahiti, and he says it's a magical place. However, this time he pauses for a little bit, so he starts to kind of figure it out. And also, a little bit of an announcement, because these last couple of episodes, from 1 until this one, have taken place in between Iron Man 3 and Thor the Dark World. The next episode is after Thor the Dark World, so just thought I'd mention that. So let's get into episode 8! So, in episode 8, we have the cleanup of Thor the Dark World. And we got 2 people who are part of a cult going into a forest, cutting down a tree, and fighting an Asgardian stick inside, which we later learn is Asgardian. And then the main gang goes over there to investigate, and yeah, turns out it is Asgardian. However, they need a specialist, so they go to Elliot Randolph, who is apparently an expert on Asgardian tech. Because Thor, he can't come to the phone right now. He is on the toilet. Also went to Taco Bell. So they talk to him about the staff, and he tells this story about an Asgardian who stayed behind. Also, I guess this episode kind of confirms that the Asgardians are not actual gods. They're aliens who we just turned into gods. So the team tracks down the location of the second piece. However, Elliot apparently went as well. So they go into this place, and they go down, and Ward finds him, and then touches the Berserker staff, which makes you go full-on rage mode, kind of. And then Sky finds him, and they both go back. And Ward, throughout the rest of this episode, is a little bit angry, because he saw an imagery of a well, and a kid inside the well. Now, the episode has you believe that Ward is the kid inside the well, but he is not, because later on we learned that it was his little brother that is in the well, and he was the one standing above the well, while his big brother is like, don't let him out yet, and if you throw that rope in there, I'll throw you in there as well. And Ward basically says that this was the first time he ever felt hate, because we are still early on in the show, so we kind of need to get to know the main characters. We had an episode about Fitz, we had an episode about Simmons, and Sky has been throughout the show. Let's give Ward his own episode. Don't worry, Melinda May will come eventually. However, as Professor Elliot is escaping, the cult finds him and take his piece of the staff, and then the gang takes Elliot in for questioning, and while they're questioning him, they learn that he is Asgardian, and he was the Asgardian who stayed behind, which was interesting to learn. And also, he doesn't know Thor. But I love how this show ties into the MCU. It has like very strong roots within the MCU. Elliot basically tells them where the third location of the staff is. The gang goes there in order to get it before the cult. However, the cult is already there because they want to become as gods, and that very much reminds me of Nier Automata, if you know that scene. So they go in, find the location of the staff. However, it's gone because the cult already has it. Now they have all 3 pieces. However, one of the pieces gets stabbed into Elliot. So Grant grabs that piece of the staff and goes in to fight the cult, while Coulson puts his hand inside of Elliot in order to keep him alive so that the regeneration can work. Which is kind of funny because he just sticks his hand in there. So while Ward is fighting off everyone, he gets a bit hurt, so Melinda May takes over. And she holds all 3 pieces of the staff, basically the complete staff, and is able to fully control herself and takes everyone out. And later on it gets asked, how were you able to control the staff? And that's because of the fact that she sees those visions always. She always sees what she saw through the staff, which will become important later on. I don't know if it's this season, but I think it is this season. So we get the pieces of the staff, we take them away. Elliot is free to go because Coulson keeps his secret. And we end the episode with Coulson having a nightmare about Tahiti, and also Grant Ward and Melinda May might have a little fling going on. So in episode 9, we have a girl in a store, and things start to happen in that store. Like, stuff starts falling and all that stuff. A shelf gets thrown onto someone. She goes outside. Explosions happen. It's all some bad stuff. So, We then have May and Ward waking up together. Ooh! And the gang goes to the woman because now we learn about... This episode is for us to learn about the welcome wagon, which is for new people with superpowers, because potentially this woman has superpowers. They go over to the woman and things go wrong again. And we don't know why, so May shoots her and is like, let's go. Meanwhile, Fitz and Simmons are investigating the factory to see what went wrong, because this was a particle accelerator explosion. I feel like she's in the wrong show, to be honest. Getting powers from a particle accelerator explosion kind of feels a bit more flashy. Also, Fitz and Simmons are sad about the fact that they haven't been able to prank anyone. So, since Sky is technically a freshman, they are gonna prank Sky throughout this episode. And we have Coulson and May who are trying to figure out what happened to the woman, while also Fitz Simmons are also trying to figure out what happened at the explosion. Turns out there were a couple of complaints lodged towards her. She tried to fix the complaints, but nothing really happened because, well, we will learn later why. And then we also learn the fact that there's a ghost man aboard whose name is Tobias Fort. And he terrorizes the plane. Makes my job easier just saying that is all I need to do. But he is basically being pulled between two dimensions, as he calls it, between hell and earth. So that's fun. And also, in this episode, we have Sky, who wants to learn about what happened to the Cavalry. How did she get that name, and why is she the way that she is? And everyone tells a story until we eventually get it, which I will talk about right now. And that is the fact that there was a little girl who had superpowers. And Melinda May and Phil Coulson were part of the welcome wagon. However, everything went south. And then Melinda May had to do what she had to do. And after that, she became the way that she is right now. So while we don't get to see it, we get to hear about it. Maybe one day we'll get to see what happened. However, after they learn what this really is, Melinda May takes the woman and takes her to a barn in order to use her as bait so that Tobias will come for them, and then Melinda May can take out Tobias. So that overall kind of works. And we learn about the fact that Tobias is the one who has been filing all of the complaints when nothing was wrong, and he did that because he's in love. Ooh, ooh. However, the last complaint that he technically did was he loosened a couple of bolts, which is why he died with a wrench in his hand. Basically, he sabotaged the particle accelerator so that it would explode. He never meant to hurt anyone, but it still did. So, basically, he lets her go, goes to wherever he goes to. The woman is now free, and the episode ends with Melinda May pulling a prank on Fitz. So that's nice. She is really warming up to the group. So, episode 10 starts off with a prison break for this mystery man, whose name we now learn is Edison Poe. Not really anything special outside of the fact that the reason that he's in prison is because of the fact that he stabbed someone's eye out with a knife, and afterwards he just kept finishing his meal. So he's an interesting guy. Like, the guys come down to rescue him, and it's like, let's go! It's like, let's go, sir. Let's go, sir! It's like, alright, let's go. But because of the fact that they got a bunch of centipede soldiers, because we're back with that storyline, we need some help of our own. And instead of calling one of the Avengers, we have Mike. He comes back, baby, to help fight against the centipede soldiers. And it's always great to see Mike again. I'm a big fan of his character, so it's always nice to see him. So Sky is searching for her mother and kind of informs Coulson about it. And Coulson doesn't really want to get involved, so he basically points her towards Melinda May, which, yeah, May ain't happy about. He's like, well, one problem at a time, okay? First you bring him aboard, and then you inform me then that I'm gonna be bothered by Sky. And we learned that the reason that Mike is now basically perfect with his centipede stuff is because of the gun that Fitz and Simmons had made. That's how he got, that's how the unstableness of the centipede stuff got stabilized, which is very nice to see. However, we need a lead, some kind of lead. So, what do? They learn of one of the soldiers' names, and they visit his sister. And I like how Ward is like, hey, you won him a lot of money. And Coulson immediately is like, yeah, we did that on purpose because what is more suspicious than a lot of money? So she calls her brother. And also during this time, we get the Chalice story a bit, which I like because that was actually stated in the Avengers. Because I think like Tony was... I think like someone asks us, did he have anyone? And then I think Tony says like, oh, there was a cellist. And we also try to figure out anything else about Poe. Because while we can't really figure out where he's going, maybe we can figure out who visited him. So they're looking at the cameras, and it turns out Reina, which is the name that we learned, who is Flower Girl. So it's nice to put a name to the flowers, because Mike is the one who actually says that. And the bad guys decide to stop running and fight back against our team of S.H.I.E.L.D. So we have a bit of a fight happening where everything goes basically horribly wrong. However, what we do learn is that the eye implant and centipede are connected. They're basically one and the same, which is interesting because, you know, it's all connected. However, because of the eye thing, the bad guys learn that Mike Peterson is on their side. So they're gonna use his son against him. So they kidnap his son and then basically tell Mike, you know, hey, come to this location and we'll do a trade for your son. So they go over to that location. However, we do have a way of tracking Mike, so when Mike gets taken, we can track him. Problem is, they want Coulson for some reason. Because in the beginning of the episode, they are talking about this mystery man, but the clairvoyant, who we find, I think the first time we actually get the name clairvoyant, can't really see him. We learn later on that the person that they were talking about was Coulson. So instead of the bad guys wanting Mike, they're using Mike's son in order to get Coulson. So they make the trade, everyone goes away. However, Mike Peterson doesn't really like this. So he gives his son to S.H.I.E.L.D, turns around, runs back in, and then an explosion happens, and then Mike quote-unquote dies on the bridge. And then afterwards we learn that Coulson was taken because the bad guys, well, Centipede, wants to know how Coulson came back to life. So that is the big mystery that they want. And now we have episode 11, one of the most important episodes in the show, because now we get some truth revealed. So we start this episode off with S.H.I.E.L.D. interrupting a Chitauri peace sale in order to find a guy who will help them find Coulson, maybe. So they take him in, and also Victoria Hand has basically taken over the operation now, and she kind of also starts to question why we have basically everyone out there in search for Coulson. Then S.H.I.E.L.D. hacks something, and well, she gets kicked off the plane because Hand asks Melinda May if she will be any use to them, and Melinda May is like, no. So she gets kicked off the plane. She's mad at Melinda May. Also, Fitz and Simmons give her a phone so that she can make a one-time phone call, and Grant basically is like, look, your convoy will be here in 12 minutes, so run. So she gets out, and the reason for May kicking out S.H.I.E.L.D, I will say that immediately, is because of the fact that she will be of more use outside the system where she is at her best. Meanwhile, we have Coulson in a nuclear testing town that was not used because of the fact that the Cold War was over, and he is basically being just shoved into a machine in order for his memories, and also beaten into submission. However, they have a guy interrogating the one guy from the beginning of the episode, and Ward is like, what is he doing? Just lulling him to sleep? So Ward is like, look, the Victoria Hand needs to see you. I'll take over. So Ward goes in there. He's like, alright, give me the answers. The dude's like, no. So Ward just straps himself in and tells Fitz and Simmons to open up the thing. And the roof starts to open up a bit. So he starts about to almost fly out of the airplane. And is like, are you sure you don't want to tell me anything? I'll speak, please. So gets all of the information, which means S.H.I.E.L.D. can now make a lot of arrests. Meanwhile, S.H.I.E.L.D. is on her own. However, she keeps getting locked out for using computers. Even if she's putting her hand away from the computer, it still doesn't work. She's still touching the keys. So, instead, she steals someone's car, drives it into a place, crashes it, and then gets towed to some guy's house, who she then tells something fake to. Also, she gets a new outfit, but she says that 2 cops are at his house. So he comes home, and then she uses him in order to get the info that she needs, calls the gang, tells them where Coulson is. Meanwhile, you have Victoria Hand, who's like, we're not gonna follow what S.H.I.E.L.D. has, okay? Because of the fact that we have a lab here, okay? We're gonna investigate that. So basically the main team is like, look, we can do both. You go here, you go to that lab and have your funsies, okay? And we'll go and save Coulson. Alright, we'll follow S.H.I.E.L.D.'s lead, alright? So they go. S.H.I.E.L.D. also goes. Meanwhile, at the bad guy place, we have Poe, who, you know, he's basically in charge, trying to beat Phil Coulson into submission. Coulson escapes one time, but doesn't end well. So, Radar comes in and talks about someone else, which turns out at the end of the episode to be Mike Peterson. He's alive, boys! Ah, so excited. But the clairvoyant then calls Poe and is like, basically, we don't hear it, but basically he's like, so did you have the information yet? It's like, no. Then let me speak to, is Reyna there? Yes, then let me speak to Reyna. So he talks to Reyna, gives the phone back to Poe, and then Poe dies because of the thing from Iron Man 1. You remember when Ironmonger, I forgot his name. He had a cool name too. But anyway, Ironmonger puts that thing next to Tony. Yeah, he uses a more powerful version of that and kills him basically. And Reyna is put in charge. So Reyna tries to be nice. She's like, look, we don't want any S.H.I.E.L.D. secrets because the clairvoyant knows all. All we want is to know how you came back to life. And to be honest, you also want to know. So Coulson voluntarily goes in. He sees what happens. And we get to see the fact that Coulson's Tahiti memory is fake. And they implanted fake memories into him. What they were really doing was operating on his body. So, yeah. And we also get to see a doctor, so we now have a bit more answers. But the team arrives, they take care of the bad guys, save Coulson, get Coulson back, everyone is happy, and then Coulson's like, alright, you deserve my trust now, I'll take off the bracelet. And he's like, disengage bracelet. Really? That's it? It's like, yep, I thought you'd like that. And then at the end of the episode, we have Coulson visiting a doctor. And the doctor reveals that, look, Coulson, you were dead for days or weeks. And, you basically just wanted to die, my friend, so we gave you a pleasant memory instead, in order to kind of hide the fact that, we brought you back to life. And then at the end of the episode, we get the official reveal that Mike Peterson is back alive. So there's a lot of exciting stuff happening. Not next time, though. Sadly enough, it's gonna take a while before we get there, because we have a couple more episodes of just nothingness before we get to the main plot. It is all tied together, just... we were gonna go a wee bit episodic with the next episode. So in episode 12, water freezes up at the Academy of S.H.I.E.L.D. So the gang heads there to investigate. And we learned that S.H.I.E.L.D. has different places for different things. As in, the people who are smart and the people who are action are not in the same location. So it's nice for Grant Ward to see the smart people's side of things. So when they arrive there, Fitz and Simmons hold a little bit of a speech before a kid named Donnie gets frozen. But before that, we get to see a memorial thing for the fallen soldiers. And I never really put two and two together, but Skye looks at that thing and she says Bucky Barnes. Now, keep in mind, this part still takes place before the Winter Soldier. So, Bucky is dead, quote unquote. However, that is also a tie-in, a small tie-in, but still a tie-in to Winter Soldier. And I never noticed that until this watch, which was really cool. Anyway, a kid named Donnie gets frozen and Fitz and Simmons save him. And also we learned that the bad guys, quote unquote, in this episode are working for Ian Quinn. He makes his miraculous return. So now the gang needs to figure out who wants to kill Donnie and also why. Meanwhile, Phil, Coulson, and May go somewhere else to find out about Skye's past. So they find a guy who's the partner of the woman who dropped Skye off at the orphanage. So they basically have a little bit of a chase with him. And eventually he tells them, like, look, wherever she goes, death follows. She was being taken care of by a village when we found her. And that whole village was basically slaughtered. And a whole S.H.I.E.L.D. team was also slaughtered. And when we found the 084, it's like, oh, so Skye is an 084. Oh, that's nice to know. And he says, wherever she goes, death follows. So that's an interesting thing. Not really something you want to know about one of your friends, but hey. Back with the main gang. In order to figure out who wanted Donnie dead, the ladies and Ward, they go to the boiler room, which is their special hideout place. Meanwhile, Fitz is going to Donnie in order to kind of befriend him and maybe try and get some information out of him. So Fitz goes into his room, basically he's like, oh, my room used to look just like this, just with a bunch of laundry. And he has an experiment thing, but he can't fix it. But Fitz is like, how about you put some air in it and that fixes it? It's like, alright, cool. So Fitz walks away. Meanwhile, in the boiler room, the gang, Skye figured out who potentially could be the one who did all this stuff. So Ward goes over to her to talk to her, but she basically says that Donnie and another kid named Seth, who was the first guy to get frozen, they were talking for a while about the fact that Fitz and Simmons were gonna come here, which wasn't something that was planned until after the attack, but they've been talking about it for weeks, which kind of puts the spotlight on them. So Simmons calls Fitz, tells him the story. He's like, oh no, don't worry about it, I just helped them finish the power shore, and runs back. And then we learn that yes, Donnie and Seth are the ones who built the ice machine thingy, and they built it to sell it to Ian Quinn. And they're not bad guys. I just want to say that immediately. In my notes, I wrote bad guys, but they're not bad guys. So, Donnie and Seth escape. They take the machine, and Seth calls Quinn and asks for help. Quinn is like, yeah, okay, I will do it, but only after your demonstration. I couldn't resist. And then hangs up the phone and is like, yeah, okay, let's just leave, okay? So they activate the thing, and a big snowstorm is about to happen. Like some kind of superstorm is about to come. Meanwhile, we have Coulson who tells Sky that she's an 084 and the fact that everyone, you know, basically whoever protected her died. So that's nice to know. And then the team goes into the storm in order to rescue Donnie and Seth. However, Seth dies, sadly enough, because Donnie realizes what he has done and there's a lot more to come. So they need to stop it. So Seth eventually helps him, but then a thunderstorm comes down and it just hits Seth, kills him. And that's it. They fly out. They save the two, they save Donnie. And everything is good again. I don't know how the storm was stopped, but let's just say it just ended eventually. And then we have Donnie who gets put in the back of a S.H.I.E.L.D. car and he learns that he has powers. He has blizzard powers. And we also learned that Quinn works for the Clairvoyant. And when Coulson and May have their conversation about Coulson telling Sky, May fears that Sky's world is shattered, but a new door has been opened right now for Sky. And also, Sky learned that she was actually wanted because she basically went her whole life without being wanted. So, episode 13 starts off like any other episode. Apparently, Quinn is gonna receive a package from a train, so we're gonna infiltrate that train. And also, we're gonna tell the Italian people to go away. Back off. This is our mission now. So we infiltrate the train and we get a cameo from Stan Lee. Everyone has different jobs, by the way, but we get a Stan Lee cameo. I did not expect that. Stan Lee appeared and I was like, oh my god, I thought Agent Carter was the only one that you appeared in. My goodness. But I like how everyone has their own thing. I mean, apparently Sky and Fitz are a couple. We have the fact that Simmons is the daughter of Coulson. And we also have, I guess, a married couple between Grant Ward and Melinda May. So that's interesting. And I also like how they tag the target in this thing where Simmons just goes off on him. How dare you cheat on mom with those prostitutes? And then accidentally, quote unquote, hits the people that she needs to tag with the ashes, which the ashes are the tag things. Melinda May climbs out, goes on top of the train in order to follow the package. Coulson goes to the back of the train in order to see what's up. Turns out at the back of the train, the whole thing's empty. And then Ward comes in and is like, we've been made. They jump off the train. And then we see Ward's perspective, where he basically just disguises himself, goes out, and then a woman asks for help. But the woman turned out to be part of the bad guys. So he takes down the woman, and then he runs, and then, you know, we have the same stuff. They jump out the train, and the train vanishes. So now Coulson and Ward need to figure out what to do, because the train just vanished. So they start by walking off, trying, you know, a way back to the plane. And they find a car that has been hotwired, which is very suspicious. They get in, they get back to the plane. They try to use Fitz and Simmons' hollow table, but they really can't get it to work. Then the Italian guy appears, which they talked to before. But he appears, and apparently the Italian team basically got killed. And he's the only one left, so he's gonna meet up. So he meets up with them, and then Melinda May appears and just puts a knife in his back. And then says, wheels up at 5. And then we get to see Melinda May's point of view. So what happened is that while Ward and Coulson were being chased, May was being shot at because they were discovered. And she parachuted off. So the train drives off, and then she finds Coulson and Ward just frozen. Which, the bomb, by the way, is the tech that they use in the freeze pistols. But more upgraded. So she throws her goggles away, which is why Coulson and Ward found it. And also she was the one who hotwired the car. However, when she did that, she was caught by the Italian guy. And basically, you know, hung up and then stabbed in the arm. However, Melinda May took out the team. So when the Italian guy was like, yeah, my team got taken out. Yeah, that was by Melinda May. And his name is Russo. So when Russo gets aboard the plane, he has a gun behind him, and that's why Melinda May killed him. And then it turns out that they were frozen. May basically gives the whole story to Coulson and Ward, and they basically fly after they find the train, they go on board. Turns out the train is empty, so now we need another way. And so we get Fitz and Sky's POV, which was the fact that Simmons came running in. And also they were attacked by another guy. However, the bad guy uses one of those like freezing bombs on himself and Simmons. So that's why when Coulson found Simmons, which I forgot to say, she was holding a gun. That's the whole thing. But anyway, so Fitz and Skye go after the package, which leads them to Quinn. And Skye goes in to retrieve the package while, Fitz disables the vehicles. So she goes in, she goes downstairs, sees Mike, then gets cornered by Quinn. And basically Quinn gives Mike a new leg. And then afterwards, Quinn wants Mike to kill Skye, which he doesn't do, not his orders, and then he walks off, which he goes to kill the people who brought the package, because the clairvoyant is mad that S.H.I.E.L.D. is in here too. But then we have Quinn, who shoots Skye multiple times, and she is now dying. And instead of making escape, Quinn gets caught by S.H.I.E.L.D. and Skye is dying now, so she gets put in a pod. And now we need to rescue Skye, which will be the next episode. Also, Mike can't see his son, and the project name is Deathlock. So that's interesting. So, Tahiti time! So, in episode 14, S.H.I.E.L.D. tries to save Skye, but to no avail. So Coulson has another idea. Time to take Skye to the place where Coulson came from, and potentially have the doctors there bring Skye back to life. And he gives the gigantic file to Fitz and Simmons in order to figure out. However, one slight issue, because they have yet to hand over Quinn. So S.H.I.E.L.D. comes in, and we have some old friends, well, one old friend joining us, whose name is Garrett, and he has his #1 man Trip with him, because Coulson took his #1 man, Grant Ward. So, Coulson and Garrett make a deal that until this is over, Quinn stays here. And if Skye lives, Quinn goes with ya. If Skye doesn't live, bye-bye Quinn. So Garrett convinces S.H.I.E.L.D. that he can interrogate Quinn from that plane, so he does that. He gets in there. Beforehand, May already went in there, beat him almost to death, so that's fun. But Garrett wants to know about the Deadlock Project and Cybertech, so that's nice. But we have Trip here in this episode as well, who will become a lot more important later down the line. Don't you worry about that one. I will give you a slight spoiler. I am a big fan of him. However, because of the interrogation, they figure out exactly what the situation is. And that is, look, the clairvoyant had Quinn shoot Skye because that was the only way for Coulson to find out what happened to him. However, if Coulson finds out what happens to him, so will the clairvoyant. So it's either save Skye and let the clairvoyant know, or let Skye die and no one knows. So obviously, we're going with option #1. So Fitz and Simmons are searching for the location of the Tahiti project place, and they have an idea. Fitz has an idea, so he uses some tech in order to get through some files from S.H.I.E.L.D. in order to find the doctor and see his travel logs. But he went to one specific location called the guest house, and the thing that they're searching for is GH325 and GH guest house. So they head over to the guest house and they break in because the people don't let them in. So they break in and kill the 2 guards, and then turns out there are bombs all over the place. So we have about 10 minutes or so in order to find everything. So Coulson and Fitz go in search of GH325 while Ward and Garrett stay behind in order to cover the door and also find an escape plan. No. While Garrett and Ward stay behind in order to 1. Disable the bombs, which, spoiler warning, doesn't work, or 2. To open up the door. So Fitz and Coulson are searching the place, and Coulson finds the lookout room, to where if you look down there, you can see that Coulson was operated there. So Coulson has a nasty flashback, and then they continue on the search. They eventually find the place that they're looking for. They find GH325. Coulson tells Fitz to leave, and Coulson is going to investigate a little bit more, and he finds out that, we learn this later, he finds out that this comes from a Cree. I almost said tree. Yes, boys, our first introduction of a Cree, and I don't know, maybe this is connected to Captain Marvel. It's not tie-in at all, but you can kind of see this tie-in maybe a little bit. Early tie-in, S.H.I.E.L.D. was thinking 15 steps ahead. So Coulson goes back and he basically yells the fact that they shouldn't give this stuff to Skye. However, yeah, it's already injected, and Skye is saved. She first looks to be, dying, and then she's saved. So everything is fine. But not everything is fine, to be honest, because Coulson now knows the truth. This will come into play later, don't you worry about that. And we end the episode with a woman on Earth bewitching a man and calling Earth Midgard, so you know what that means, and she bewitches him and leaves with him. I would say, don't you worry ladies, that is never going to happen to me if I was in a committed relationship, but to be honest, spells kind of negate relationship, if I'm being honest there. But she calls it Midgard, and you know what that means? We got some Thor in the next episode. Well, kinda. We get Sif. So, since that last Thor tie-in was a little bit of a letdown, let's do another one with episode 15. And it starts off with the mystery woman and the guy from the last episode arriving at a bar. And then she takes control of the leader there, Then she takes control of Rooster, the leader of the biker gang, and also kills the last guy. He is not needed anymore. Meanwhile, Simmons is trying to figure out how to get GH325 out of S.H.I.E.L.D, but that's with no luck. Some might even say that she's in an inhumane condition. Also, Coulson is searching for Fury, and we get another Jasper Sitwell appearance. How nice. You have appeared more in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. now than I feel like in the entirety of the MCU. But what a nice guy for appearing again. It's like the third time. But Sif comes to Earth, and the gang encounters Sif. Sif remembers the logo of S.H.I.E.L.D. So, no fight, no nothing. Just, we're gonna be dealing with Lorelei, which is what we learn is her name. And also, she escaped their cell thanks to the Dark Elf attack, and she came to Earth thanks to the secret pathways of Loki. Did not know anyone other but Loki knew that, but I guess Lorelei now knows the secret passageway too. Meanwhile, with the biker gang, the Rooster gives all of the money to Lorelei. She's like, where's the gold? It's like, well, this is technically gold. This is the currency of this Earth. Meanwhile, Rooster's wife comes in and is like, what's happening here? And then Rooster kills his wife on the orders of Lorelei. And the weapons are now officially called icers. They're not called 9-9 guns anymore. I thought that they were already called icers, but nope. This is the first episode where they are called icers. How nice. But we find the location of the biker gang, and so it is time to attack. So we attack that place, and I like how Sif kicks mobile home. Was pretty cool. Sif goes inside in order to take care of Lorelei, but sadly enough, the collar thing gets shot, and Ward gets controlled by Lorelei. So everything goes wrong. You know what? They knew that the voice was the problem. Nobody really thought about, bringing earplugs. No, just me. Okay. Would have been better if they just brought earplugs. It would have been fine. And by the way, that is something that I thought of because of Agent Carter, actually. In the finale of season 1, Sousa has like things in her ears. Like, what was he saying? I don't know. But it's like, why didn't they just have earplugs for the gang? Come on, this is S.H.I.E.L.D. So Sif is mad that the collar is broken. So Coulson takes it to fix it. And meanwhile, Ward is having a lot of fun with Lorelei. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And they talk about the fact that Sif and S.H.I.E.L.D. will come for them. And then Ward comes up with the idea of just taking them out. So they lure the gang over to them while they get on the plane while everyone's off. It's a genius plan, because when the gang gets back, the Fitz is like, yes, come with me, of course. I fixed your thing, and it's in this room. And then eventually the roof opens up and she flies out. Gone forever, quote unquote. So now we have a battle in order to get back what we stole. And also we learned in this episode that Ward is in love with Skye. So that's nice. Well, not officially that it's Skye, but who else? But Coulson manages to free the girls who are also trapped. And they let Sif back in. And then Sif has a fight with Lorelei, which at the beginning looks really janky. But I'll accept it. And we also have Ward versus May, and Fitz gets punched in the face by Coulson. So that's also nice. I like how he comes down the stairs because he's going after Simmons. He comes down the stairs and Coulson is like, Fitz. He turns around and says, sir. Even if he's being mind controlled, he is still very polite. Sir? Then I gets punched in the face. But eventually, Sif gets the collar around Lorelei and stops her from speaking. The mind control ends and everything is fine. So Sif takes Lorelei back to Asgard. The day is saved. And now Coulson talks with Skye about what happened on advice from Melinda May. Because she's like, look, you need to talk to someone about this. If not with me, talk to it with Skye. Alright, she's got the same kind of problem. She also has used GH325. So, maybe talk with her about it. So he does that, and she basically is like, he makes a whole big thing about it. He's like, look, we were saved by alien blood. And she's like, alright, cool. So what? We're alive. Who cares? And then Coulson is basically like, let's go after the people. Let's go and find out all the secrets about the Tahiti project. Meanwhile, May is working with an unknown person because she's listening in. And that is the end of episode 15. And also, from this point onward, we will start the beginning of the 7-part season finale where it all comes together. So next up, we have the beginning of the end. Luckily enough, since the show is finished, we'll talk about that right now. So, here we are. The beginning of the end. Well, technically the end of the beginning, but still. Episode 16. This is where we're gonna go fully into the Clairvoyant arc and the Winter Soldier arc. So, this episode starts off with Garrett and Trip entering a S.H.I.E.L.D. safe house, and Garrett thinking that the Clairvoyant is on the Index or was a Index reject, and Deathlock comes to kill them. So, Phil Coulson calls Blake, Hand, Sitwell, Garrett, and Trip to join in order to go after the Clairvoyant, and they have an interesting plan. We're gonna use randomizers to do this kind of stuff. So Sky is gonna make random teams for the mission, and she becomes an official S.H.I.E.L.D. agent. I'm so proud of her. Meanwhile, Deathlock gets a new arm, and Sitwell goes to the Lemurian Star. You know, that ship at the beginning of Winter Soldier? Told you. It's all coming together. So the teams are: number 1 is Ward and Trip, who go to a prison. Number 2 is Blake and May, who go to like a psych ward or someplace like that. And number 3 is Coulson and Garrett, who go nowhere because of the fact they can't even get to the location where they're going to, because of the fact that Deathlock attacks Felix and May and escapes. However, Felix, before he got put in critical condition, puts a tracker on him with one of the bullets. Because later on, Coulson's like, wait, you said he shot 6, right? But there's 5 missing from this mag and 1 from this one. So he tagged him. Let's get him. Simmons has to go to the hub in order to debrief people on Deathlock so that people aren't going in there blind, and Trip goes with her. And Fitz will create an encrypted hotline for him and Simmons to talk to. And you can really see that it upsets him that Simmons goes away from him. So the gang goes to the location of Deathlock. They have a bit of an encounter with him, but Deathlock escapes, and they find the Clairvoyant, who is just sitting there, menacingly taunting them. Until Ward puts a bullet in him. After he starts taunting them about Sky, he puts a bullet in him. So yeah, there goes our only lead. Very convenient. So Coulson gets told that Fury is back at the Triskelion, so that he can finally get all of his answers, aka we are now, I think right now, at like the beginning part of the Winter Soldier. Like, I think the beginning part of the Winter Soldier takes place after this episode, and then the next episode takes place during Winter Soldier. However, while Fitz is figuring out how to do the encrypted line, they have a little bit of static because of the fact that there's another encrypted line. So Fitz follows that one, and it leads to the cockpit, and he learns that May has been talking to someone secretly. Meanwhile, Coulson and Sky, they kind of figure out that this was a little bit too easy. And also the Sky figures out the fact that, look, everything that you said was in your psyche, Val. Meaning, the Clairvoyant, he ain't some kind of Clairvoyant, he's a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent. So they go interrogate Ward while Fitz runs away from May. So they go to interrogate Ward, then Fitz encounters Sky and tells her everything, and she tells Fitz to cut the line. So Fitz goes downstairs to cut the line because they now think that potentially maybe Melinda May is working with the Clairvoyant. And Sky goes over to Coulson to tell him about it. So Fitz cuts the line and then runs away from Melinda May, and then Coulson and Sky hold a gun to her, and then the plane gets taken over, and apparently that was done by S.H.I.E.L.D. and Hand now wants everyone dead except Coulson, kind of making us think that maybe she's the Clairvoyant. And that's how the episode ends. What a thrilling start to this thing. I can't wait to see what happens next. So in episode 17, we start off the episode with Garrett being shot at and May revealing that she has a direct line to Nick Fury. And meanwhile, at the hub, Simmons and Trip are investigating the blood. Simmons is initially a bit, hesitant, but then, reveals the truth. And then he's like, well, I got level 6 clearance. So it allows me a little bit more privilege around this place. So they do the blood stuff. They tried to contact Agent Weaver, the woman from the previous episode with the hub. So Coulson shoots May, and they tried to save Garrett. And we learn the reason why Hand thinks that the clairvoyant is on board. And that's because of the fact that an encoded message went out. And I'm just gonna say it, that encoded message is probably the one from Fitz. Also, this episode basically takes place over the back half of the movie Captain America the Winter Soldier. Because there's also a strange signal happening. So Sky's trying to hack that signal. And when she hacks it, it says, out of the shadows and into the light. Which is like, Assassin's Creed! Because, you know, I'm an Assassin's Creed fan, and that's kind of how it goes. But basically, afterwards, we get one word that each letter comes in, and it spells Hydra! We have the big reveal that Hydra is within S.H.I.E.L.D. all along, as we got with the Winter Soldier. And basically, the gang also kind of learns that, alright, now, when we get there, we're probably gonna be killed. So we need a way to save our people. So they land. Also, Coulson talks with Melinda May. And Melinda May reveals that she's the one who picked Coulson's team. And the reason for that is because they needed someone who could repair his body. Someone who could repair his mind. A.k.a. Fitz and Simmons. And the specialist helping to take down Coulson if need be. Which is Ward. And that it was all under the orders from Fury. And also that May knew about Tahiti. So that's fun. That one reveal is kind of where the whole distrust starts to happen. So Sky backs up the whole hard drive of the plane on a portable hard drive. They take it with them. And they escape the plane while we have a team coming in order to search for it. Meanwhile, Hand captures Simmons and Trip. Because of the fact that when they contacted Weaver, she's like, the academy is under siege. We don't know how long Hydra has been here. Lock all the doors and trust nobody. So Trip locks the doors, and then we get the whole suspicious like, oh, is Trip Hydra? No, Trip is not Hydra. How could you even think that? You are racist. But Hand eventually captures them and is like, alright, join Hydra. And then they're like, no. And then Hand is like, alright, cool. You're included on my list of people that I can trust. How nice. However, the reason that Hand thinks that Coulson is Hydra is because of the fact that he's kept secrets and lied about stuff. Which I guess she kinda has a point, but he ain't the bad guy, okay? But Ward and Sky are separated from the team because they need to kinda like shut down all of these systems. And instead of hacking, I like how she just has a bag with a bomb in it. It's like, well, who said anything about hacking? But also Ward is like, hey, let's go on a date together. Oh, by the way, also, Sky gave the hard drive to Ward, which will come into play later. Don't you worry about that one. But Ward is like, you know, I'm gonna go out there. I'm gonna take everyone out and then make sure that the way is clear. However, if I do survive, how about we go on a date? And she's like, alright. And then they kiss and I went, ooh, woo. So Grant goes out, takes everyone out, which is a pretty cool action sequence. It's not a one shot from Daredevil, but still cool. Meanwhile, our main gang takes control of the security room. But anyway, Fitz tries to hack in. And then Garrett kind of keeps going on and on about the fact that it's like they have to kill Hand. And then Coulson is like, no, we don't. Because last time we did it, we shot the wrong guy. Maybe Hand is also the wrong person. We don't know that for sure. So Garrett starts waffling off about this whole thing. And eventually starts talking about the stuff that happened to Coulson. However, the fact that Reyna went into the machine was never disclosed. So how does he know that? Coulson figures out he's Hydra. He's the clairvoyant. And before anything can happen, a bunch of soldiers come in. And then Garrett is like, I know at least some of you were chosen by Jasper Sitwell himself. And then the Hydra soldiers kill the S.H.I.E.L.D. soldiers. However, because of the explosion that Sky causes, there's a whole blackout. And everyone fights everyone. And I like how Fitz was crying beforehand. Because like, alright, Coulson, you're a lost cause. You're also a lost cause, May. But maybe Fitz wants to join Hydra. And Fitz is like, tears in his eyes, by the way. He's like, no. But when the blackout happens, Fitz goes under the table and then just shoots one guy because a gun comes towards him in order to save May. But eventually, Hand gets in there and it's like, yeah, okay, we heard everything because apparently they put a listening device there. But we heard everything and yeah, alright, cool. You're a good guy. And then we have the end of the Winter Soldier. And after that, they are going to take Garrett to the fridge. And Ward is going with them in order to, basically, he could always be useful. Meanwhile, the main gang is gonna try to survive because all the secrets are out thanks to Black Widow. So that's a fun one. However, while Ward is with Hand going to the fridge, Hand is like, maybe we should just kill him. And then Ward grabs his gun, shoots the 2 soldiers and Hand, and reveals he's Hydra! Funny, isn't it, how before Ward was talking about loyalty and trust and he felt so betrayed when it turned out that, you know, Melinda May had a secret line and he cared so much. Yeah, well, now he's betrayed us. So let's go into episode 18 where we have Ward gives Reina the flower dress and helps her escape and brings her to the clairvoyant. Meanwhile, we only have 3 safe spaces, which later on we get a 4th one, and we get the introduction of Glenn Talbot, who is going to come to us, so we're leaving. Because Talbot ain't that good of a guy, don't worry, he'll become more important later on, and I guess they couldn't get William Hurt in this show, so they got Glenn Talbot. And Tripp wants to join our team, Coulson is like, no. And then Simmons is like, yes. And then Coulson's like, alright, fine, but he's your responsibility. And we aren't Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. anymore, so what are we called then? What's the show called then? Come on, people. Also, we have Reina, who is not really happy to learn the truth about the clairvoyant because she wants to know something. And yeah, no answers about that one. But she still joins the team and stays with Hydra, which now is officially confirmed to be Hydra. Also, we have Ward, who is mad at Garrett, so maybe deep inside he still cares about the team, which later on also gets put into question whether he still cares for the team or not. However, I feel like maybe Coulson would forgive him, but maybe not. I don't know. If he just went to Coulson and was like, I'm sorry. And also, during the episode Tahiti, apparently Garrett took a couple of vials because he is searching for something that could be GH325 because he needs it for some reason, which we will learn later on. So, while we have Reina take care of the cure, we're gonna go and raid the fridge. And also Coulson collects the badges from everyone and wants to put him in a safe, and then Sky notices the fact that his badge is lighting up. So, well, we got some coordinates, baby, so we're gonna head there immediately. Even though not the whole team is on board with this stuff, and the fact that Fury's alive, yeah, people are like, if Fury ain't alive, he's dead. But he's not dead, if you saw Winter Soldier. And also we learned that someone else was in charge of the Tahiti project, which is kind of, maybe it was Hydra, because Fury was not in charge of the Tahiti project. Fury put someone else in charge, basically. And we have Ward and Garrett at the fridge. They want to get in, obviously. Garrett is in cuffs, but the guys inside ain't letting them in because of the fact that they need to see Agent Hand with them. That's gonna be a bit of a problem because she's dead. However, then a fake helicopter attack happens and they let them in, and then, you know, they basically take over the fridge and steal all the weapons. And Ward takes one of the weapons and also frees all the prisoners. But Ward takes one of the weapons, the big cannon thing, and is like, alright, I'm gonna blow a hole in the floor here because there's a floor below. And then Garrett is like, no. And then Ward's like, wanna make a bet? So that whoever is right buys dinner. So he shoots a hole in the floor and it's like, oh, Gravitonium, how you doing today? And also the whole slingshot program was kind of just a lie because of the fact they basically sent empty rockets up into space, into the sun, which, okay, that's a big waste. But also, Garrett says sometimes they would just have fun and send a monkey within there. It's like, what's fun about killing monkeys? I knew he was evil. He's an evil prick. Meanwhile, the main gang is in the cold because that's where the coordinates led, and they're searching for the safe house, which they can't really find. And Coulson also says, yeah, this was a one-way trip. I gave you a choice, but I still dragged you all the way out here in the middle of nowhere. So, and then he throws his badge, and then a gun pops up, and then Coulson walks into the walks in line of fire, and then it's like, state your name, Phil Coulson, and it's like, oh great, fantastic. Door opens up. We are in the S.H.I.E.L.D. base called the Providence, also the name of the episode, and we meet Eric Koenig, who will become very important later on. Well, his family anyway. But we do learn that he plays Call of Duty with his family, and of course Coulson plays as well. But he basically explains the lay of the land and how things work here, and fanboys over Coulson and hates everyone else, and also basically reveals that the fridge was raided. So now we have to call Ward to see if he's okay, because he's technically still part of the team. So Ward is gonna go back because of the fact that Sky locked the hard drive. Of course she did, and only she can access the hard drive. So Ward needs to get back in there in order to get the hard drive unlocked by Sky. So Garrett gives him 24 hours to make it happen, and also beats him up in order to make it believable. Also, Quinn has been freed, and Garrett gives him the gravitonium as an I'm sorry. Alright, so in episode 19, Daniels, the guy that we saw before, steals a ride and goes to Portland. Why? We don't know. Also, this guy, apparently he's named Blackout, so that's fun as well. And Ward tells a story about the fact that Hydra took over the fridge, and he says that Garrett is dead. Half of that is correct. Garrett ain't dead though, but Hydra did take the fridge. So Coulson wants to go after Daniels, and Eric isn't happy about it. So everyone has to fill out a questionnaire, basically. They get put into this lie detector machine, and even Romanov couldn't break. Well, Ward figures out a way. He gets past it somehow. Luckily enough, he has a couple of broken ribs that help him get past some questions, and a steel piece under his nail. And we learned that Trip is the grandson of one of the Howling Commandos. And Ward also knows now that Fitz likes Simmons, as in like. So, Coulson, Trip, Fitz and Simmons head over to stop Blackout while the rest of them stay behind, and Coulson basically tells May to go. You either follow my orders or you leave. So Coulson knows where Daniels is going because he's going after his old flame. Yeah, you remember in the Avengers how it was mentioned that Coulson had a cellist as a lover? Well, time to meet the lover. And Coulson, she ain't that bad. She seems like a nice woman. But she's running in a park. Daniels appears and she runs away. Then Trip and Simmons rescue her. And afterwards, Coulson tries to stop him. And doesn't really work. Fridge made him stronger, which makes me go, oh, Hydra. Probably people in Hydra. I don't know. But that's the first thought that I had. And then at her place, she basically tells the story. She's like, look, I know you're not with the CIA, you're with S.H.I.E.L.D. And don't worry about it. The love of my life was part of S.H.I.E.L.D. Phil. It's like, Phil Coulson. Yes, you know him? Ah, he's heard the stories about him. Fantastic agent. And Phil Coulson chooses not to reveal his identity because he wants to let her get on with her life instead of, you know, she's made progress grieving. Now she just needs to get past that. And having Coulson show back up and then taking him away again would start it all over again. So it's not a good idea. However, we're going to use her in order to stop Daniels. So she puts on a performance on the cello, and Daniels walks in, and they got these big lights, so they're shooting him with it in order to stop him. However, then Coulson goes downstairs, grabs one, and shoots him with it. And I'm like, how can she not see that Coulson is standing right there? She must think she's imagining things, because when Blackout, I don't know, blows up, I don't know if he's fully dead. I don't remember if he appears later on, but when he blows up, she gets blasted. And Coulson goes over there and is like, are you okay? Don't worry about it, I'm still here. And then he runs away. And then she's like, oh, Phil. And it's like, she ain't here. Meanwhile, back at base, Sky has an idea. She wants to hack the NSA in order to find out what happened at the fridge, because NSA satellites can do it. However, Eric is like, no. But then Ward is like, look, I also need your help with the hard drive. And she's like, oh yeah, this is how I did it. It's location based. We need to go to a specific location, which impresses Eric. So he's like, all right, fine, do it. Do your thing. So she hacks in, which will lead to nothing. However, when Eric tells Ward like, oh hey, we're almost there, Ward kills him. And Sky eventually finds that out and learns that Ward is Hydra. So that was fun. So now she has to kind of be a double agent type of thing. She has to pretend she doesn't know and still trust him. And I'm just gonna be honest here, the actress, she doesn't really pull it off. She never did, okay? When I watched this season way back when, which was like 500 years ago, I didn't like the double agent thing that she did. I understand that the story goes there. I like that the story goes there. I just think like the actress is great as Sky or Daisy Johnson or Quake, but she doesn't really pull this off. This is the only part that I have an issue with. Now it becomes mainly an issue in the next episode. I just thought that I would talk about it right now. And Sky and Ward get on the bus because they need to go to the specific location. And the gang comes back and is like, where's the bus? Meanwhile, May, who has left at this point, she left. She officially left. She was like, I'm done, right? She leaves, but she called her mom for help because she is searching for Maria Hill, which is very interesting. We get to see Maria Hill again. Her appearances on this show are more memorable than in the actual movies. So, episode 20 starts off with with Maria talking on the phone with Pepper. And, you know, she's talking about a couple of things. A little reference to Man-Thing, which we won't see for another 500 years. But, you know, nice to know that Man-Thing is out there as well. And Melinda May finds her and helps her out because she's kind of being followed by a bunch of people. And May is taking those people out. But she needs to know who was the boss of the Tahiti project. So, Maria Hill says, yeah, that secret's buried with where Coulson is supposed to be. It's like, so Maria goes to Coulson's grave in order... No, May goes to Coulson's grave in order to figure that one out. She finds a USB there, plugs it into a laptop, and learns the truth we don't yet until the end of the episode. Meanwhile, back with the main cast, since S.H.I.E.L.D. and Ward took the bus, they're trying to figure out why. Everyone's a bit nervous, and so Gemma has a perfect idea. I'm gonna make some pancakes. And Fitz helps her. However, while Fitz is going to heat up the burner, he sees that something is wrong. Because you have day here, but in there it's night. So he goes in there, he removes something, and learns that Ward is Hydra. At the same time, Gemma goes into the storage closet in order to grab some supplies to make some good old-fashioned pancakes. Because who doesn't get cheered up by a bunch of pancakes? But finds Eric's dead body, so that's fun. So they're all worried about it, being like, no, he can't be the evil guy. Ward can't be Hydra. Fitz is having an absolute panic attack and a complete meltdown. However, we can't really talk about that much because the UNES army is here. However, they'll never get into the blast doors, and then Maria Hill opens up the door apparently, so she sold them out. However, Maria did not know that Ward is Hydra, and she also doesn't know that Garrett is alive, and that Hand is dead. Meanwhile, with the bad guys, I don't know, with Ward and Sky, they're heading over to the diner where all of this began, because apparently that is the location. So they sit down, and Sky is basically like, this is gonna take a couple hours, because, you know, the encryption is tough. However, we learned that she is not in the location where she's supposed to be, and she's basically just stalling him. And apparently she put out a worldwide search for Ward, which is actually funny that she was just able to do that. But all the cops show up at this diner, and it's just like a bunch of... However, Ward finds out, and Sky has to make a run for it, but then Deadlock comes in and kind of stops her, and then they kidnap her. Also, I like how Sky is like, Hail Hydra. I thought that was funny. But they kidnap Sky and are trying to force her. Also, Ward is a sick individual, because he's like, look, alright, I may have killed so many people, and I may be aligned with Hydra and with Garrett, but I love you! It's like, you're an insane person. You make me sick. I was like, yeah, I get it, Sky. I totally get it. That would make me sick too. But Sky won't give up the information because she's basically done with Ward. So, Deadlock stops Ward's heart. Because, hey, look, hurting Sky ain't gonna do anything, but hurting someone that she, quote-unquote, cares about, maybe will help. However, Sky's like, do you think I care if he dies? And I'm like, good, tell him. But then he kind of guilt trips her into saving his life because of the fact it's like, are you a murderer? I know he is, but are you? Like, no, okay, fine. The location is to the sky because it's high up. It's not a location on Earth, it's more of a altitude location. So Sky unlocks the drive, and so Maria Hill helps him escape by punching the military people. Look, you could talk about the logistics of a woman being able to take out 2 military men, but we're just gonna ignore that for the sake of the fact that this scene works at that point. So as the bad guys are about to take off, Maria Hill's in front of them with a jet and is like, hey, stop it! And Ward makes a sexist remark, because Maria's like, why are you with the bad guys? Like, it all happened when Fury made you his second. If he wanted eye candy, he could have just gone for Romanov. We all lost respect for him at that point. It's like, what? Alright, first of all, that's sexist. Like, you want to have a sexist? Like, that's not a joke. That is the truth. That's a sexist, okay? Look, you can make sexist joke all you want. It's fine. But the moment that you're serious is where we have a problem. However, Maria was basically stalling him because Coulson needed to get on. So Coulson climbs up on the wheel and gets inside in order to rescue Sky. He goes in, rescues Sky. However, he didn't know Deadlock was on the plane. So, they make an escape in Lola. However, Lola got shot, so it's a little bit of a bumpy escape. But it's an escape nonetheless. So we got Sky back, and now we are hiding out in a motel. And Maria Hill goes back to Stark. Until maybe we need her again. I don't know if she reappears in the future of the show, because a couple of the appearances that she made in this season, I thought were from later seasons. At least this appearance I thought was from next season. And the episode ends with May giving Coulson the truth. And that is the leader behind the S.H.I.E.L.D project was none other than Mr. Coulson himself, which shocks Coulson. And it was also made as a way to revive a fallen Avenger. That's the reason why it existed. And technically, I'd say Coulson is an Avenger, so it was properly used. However, you may be questioning yourself, why is Ward doing all this, alright? Look, his heart got stopped, and he's still working for Garrett. Why? Well, let's find out. So let's get into that backstory with episode 21. So 15 years ago, Ward burnt down his own house and got put in prison for it, and Garrett broke him out of prison, left him in the middle of nowhere with a dog for about 6 months because he was on a mission. Then afterwards teaches him how to shoot, and then has Ward kill the dog. Now I don't really know for sure if it is confirmed that Ward killed the dog. If Ward killed the dog, I'm done with him. I'm done with him forever. He can burn for all I care. I wish he was in that house. I'm a big fan of dogs. You don't kill dogs no matter what. I was like, don't you do it! I looked at Shadow and I was like, don't look, please! Shadow, I would never. Afterwards, he allows Ward to go into S.H.I.E.L.D as an operative, and that's basically how he got into S.H.I.E.L.D, and also, tells him the truth about Hydra and all that stuff. Meanwhile, back in present day, the main gang needs to figure out how to track the bad guys, cause while S.H.I.E.L.D uploaded some kind of Trojan horse, the problem is the fact that she wasn't able to finish it. So she needs a computer, a Hydra computer, in order to be able to finish it off. So let's go to Cybertech, because that is what it's all linked to. And the bad guys are close to recreating the drug that brought Coulson and S.H.I.E.L.D back from the brink of death. Well, Coulson from death, S.H.I.E.L.D from the brink of. So let's grab some old Howling Commando tech, which I actually thought was funny. He just opens up this thing and Coulson's like, alright, we need to be careful. Oh, what is this? And oh, what is this? And Fitz burns the drapes down. Classic Fitz. I really like Fitz. But the plan is basically Coulson and May are gonna go in and they're gonna pretend sell some S.H.I.E.L.D stuff to them in order to gain entry, with Fitz and Simmons in their ears in order to be able to get the right stuff out. However, the thing is, S.H.I.E.L.D can't find a computer in that place. So May and Coulson need to go to the 4th floor in order to investigate. So they knock out a guard and then knock out another guard, which I actually like this part where they're both running for the phone. May knocks him out, grabs the phone out of his hand and puts it back. That was funny. But they get in, and they learn why there's no computer, so that's because of the fact that there's only hard copies. It's all a bunch of paper. It's old school as old school can be. But, at least in this way, you won't be able to get hacked. So they search through the files and learn that John Garrett was actually Deathlock version 1. The original Deathlock. Because what we learn later on is the fact that Garrett was hit by a blast and basically S.H.I.E.L.D left him for dead, and that's why he joined Hydra. However, that also meant that he became Deathlock number 1. Meanwhile, back with the bad guys, John Garrett is dying because the organs are failing him. The Deathlock parts are perfect. The problem is the organs are not. And that's why John Garrett needs that drug, which is also what the main team learns after stealing the tech. Because it's like, alright, we're gonna send you some data, and they just throw the thing outside and pick. And then they like go out. I'm like, how has nobody, like, what? Alright, you're just able to, sure, why not? Comic books, remember, based off of comic books. Also, Reina finds out the truth about what happened, and that is because of the fact that the people who killed the S.H.I.E.L.D agents were apparently S.H.I.E.L.D's parents. However, I think we should remove the S, because I think it was just one parent. If I remember correctly, it was only her dad. And Reina finds a little inhumane thing out about S.H.I.E.L.D, something that she and Reina have in common. See you next season for that little tease. But the gang eventually finds out where they need to go, so they head over to Cuba in order to, and Garrett moves his stuff away. So they split up. Fitz and Simmons go and look for the bus, and the rest of the team heads into the bad guy place in order to upload the virus. Problem is, Ward finds Fitz and Simmons because they want to send in one of their drones in there However, Ward finds them, so that's not gonna happen at all. So they get captured, and Fitz EMPs Garrett, which I love that one, where it's like, yeah, eat on that. I like that. Fitz, my boy, he's so changed since joining in the first episode. However, Fitz still has this insane notion that Ward is innocent in all this, which he is not. So Fitz and Simmons escape, they run away, they get into, I don't know, somewhere. They get into a place, and then Ward, instead of killing them both, he throws them out. That whole box basically gets dropped from the ship into the water. And I think this is when we have the whole reveal that potentially Ward did shoot the dog, so Ward is dead to me. And Garrett is injected with the serum, which is finished, and starts to feel perfectly fine. Meanwhile, the team goes down into the barbershop and finds that everything's gone. However, there's a secret panel, and when they open it up, behind them, there's a guy with a berserker staff and a bunch of centipede soldiers. So let's see how they get out of that one. And so here we are at the final episode of Season 1 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Finally, we made it after 5 hours of video. So, S.H.I.E.L.D. uploads the program and the gang barely escapes from the centipede soldiers and also the berserker guy. However, the berserker guy is not really a problem because May just disarms him and then uses the berserker staff in order to fight people and eventually uses it to cave the whole thing in. And that's how they make their escape. Meanwhile, Garrett starts to draw strange things on a piece of glass with a nail. And it looks very much like that stuff from back in episode 4. Told you it'd come back into play. Also, Fitz and Simmons are at the bottom of the ocean, and Fitz has sent out a distress signal. The problem is that distress signal was on S.H.I.E.L.D. communications, and well, S.H.I.E.L.D's kinda dead. So that's gonna be a big problem. However, they do figure out a plan on blowing up the window for later. Meanwhile, Quinn is still trying to sell super soldiers, and the main gang steals a big truck and attacks Cybertech. While Garrett just casually kills a US general and the other ones are captured. And Quinn and Reyna are like, alright, this is my exit, I guess. They take the gravitonium and leave because Garrett's gone fully insane. So, basically the main gang takes over the Cybertech HQ because of the fact that this guy's holding a bag with a quote-unquote bomb. And she calls Garrett, and then Garrett taunts her by saying that Fitz and Simmons are dead. Meanwhile, Fitz and Simmons they have a plan. However, only one of them can survive. So, Fitz is like, yeah, that's you, Gemma, because I love you, basically. He doesn't say the word specifically. However, he technically does say it. So he blows up the window, and then Simmons swims out with Fitz in hand. And she swims to the surface of the ocean where they are rescued by Nick Fury himself. He's back again, and once again, a cat did that. I'm never gonna forgive the MC for that. You took one of the coolest characters and you had a cat scratch out his eye. I'm done with you. Every time we must make a mention of it. So, Ward questions what he needs to do, and Garrett basically sends him after S.H.I.E.L.D. So, we have a plan though, because of the fact that there's someone who is very angry at Ward. So, May just starts to mercilessly beat Ward and basically explain to the audience, you do not make a woman angry. This is the end result. You better be a good fighter if you make a woman angry. Meanwhile, Fury helps Coulson take care of Garrett and gives Coulson the Avengers gun that Coulson had at the end of the Avengers. So Coulson starts blowing away the enemies, and Garrett starts pounding a bunch of nonsense. And at this point, it kind of turns into a comedy, which also kind of ruins it a little bit, while S.H.I.E.L.D. is going to rescue Mike's son. So when S.H.I.E.L.D. sends the message about the fact that his son is safe, Mike instantly turns on Garrett and blasts him with a couple of rockets. And everyone else gets taken into custody, and then Garrett is apparently still alive, and he gets this robotic body, and then Coulson just blasts him with the first ever 084 of the show. Once again, as a joke. And Mike leaves to make amends, and Fitz may never be the same is what we are told. And I'm gonna tell you right now, in Season 2, Fitz is in a very terrible state. And Coulson yells at Nick Fury about bringing him back to life and says that it was supposed to be for an Avenger, and Fury's like, yeah, that's why I used it on you big dummy. Also, there's no issue, right? I mean, I had May stationed here in order to make sure that there's nothing wrong with you. So what's the problem? By the way, you're the leader of S.H.I.E.L.D. now. Have fun. So Coulson gets handed a black box, and they follow it to some place called the playground. And we meet Billy, the brother of Eric. And yeah, this is gonna be a recurring joke throughout the whole show, where it's like we keep meeting new versions of them. Same actor though. And then in the ending sequence, we have Sky's dad. Reina goes to Sky's dad. It's like, hey, I got your daughter. I know where your daughter is. By the way, that guy might look a little bit different than the actual guy that we get in seasons 2 and 3. Yeah, that's because of the fact that they recasted him. And Coulson now starts drawing the strange things as well from episode 4 and from what Garrett did. So that will all come into play next season. Don't you worry about that. And overall, I thought the season was solid. Like I said in my main review, it's a bit bumpy at the beginning and also a little bit bumpy like later on. But overall, the season was solid. A really good first season for a show that would become a fantastic show, mainly starting with the next season. Basically, this season is just kind of like smoothing everything out. Like in the beginning, it's like we need to learn about the gang, but some people might not find that exciting, and it's not really exciting. We also need to learn about the world of S.H.I.E.L.D, and then everything comes crashing down. But the story about Mike and Deathlock, and also the story about the Clairvoyant, the Centipede and Hydra, and also the story of Coulson's return are all really interesting stories. It's just the other stuff is kind of hit and miss. I mean, in this spoiler talk, I did call the Sif episode, you know, the Thor tie-in done well. I think I did actually do that because this is also recorded in a different way than I normally would record these spoiler talks, because when I did it for Agent Carter and what I will do for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is simple. I watched the whole season and then I record my review and spoiler talk. This time, each of the episodes got a spoiler talk segment when I was done watching the episode. So this spoiler talk has been recorded over the course of 3 days instead of just everything on one day and then 5 million hours of editing. However, this is still 2.5 hours long, so still gotta cut this down, hopefully to 2 hours. But overall, but the thing is that first Thor tie-in episode was fine. I mean, we had technically 3 Thor tie-ins, but let's be honest here, the Lady Sif one was the best one. So we did have some episodes where it was like, oh, come on. But most of the episodes were really good. I really enjoyed them. I didn't hate any of the episodes from this season. It's just comparing it to later stuff. Yeah, it's a bit of a letdown. But I'm very excited to be jumping into season 2. But that will have to wait, because next time we are gonna be going into space for Guardians of the Galaxy. So hopefully I'll see you guys then. So thank you all so very much for watching, and I hope you guys have enjoyed. And if you did, please like button, subscribe if you're new, if it does already. Turn on notifications. Don't forget to check out my Let's Play channel. Link to the description and at the end of the video. And like I said, I'll see you next time when we go into space with someone called Star-Lord. Nobody knows who that is, but we will soon find out. Bye!